Hello, I'm Johnny Rowland, your host of our shooting program. Glad to have you. This is our first show of the new year, and we really do appreciate everyone being with us. We have a great show for you. The judge has some information that I think you're really going to enjoy. Remember, on a little later on this month, we're going to be covering the SHOT Show in Dallas, and I want to remind you, if you go to the SHOT Show, if you're an FFL holder or for some other reason you go to the SHOT Show and you see us walking around with the camera or just walking around talking to people, don't be worried about coming up and saying hello. Please do. We'd be very pleased to meet you and visit with you as time permits. Anyway, we do have a great show for you. Let's start off the new year with a bang, right? With Corbon ammunition and our .357 Magnum we're testing today. So why don't we do that right now? Yes, off to, hey, that's not a bad start. Let's do another. Well, friends, you know, there's a lot of talk today certainly about defensive handguns. We talk a lot about them ourselves here on the program. And we do want to congratulate the good folks in Texas. Their concealed carry law is going into effect, I believe, on the 1st. And we wish them a whole lot of luck as far as implementation. And I tell you what, it's going to make a lot of people safer than they would have been, because they can carry a firearm to protect themselves. And I tell you what, friends, without fail across this country where concealed carry permits have been issued, there's just been a tremendous lack of any problems whatsoever with them. And we're very encouraging, and of course we want everyone to be as safe as possible and certainly to bear responsibility for carrying the firearm and for using it. Remember, if you're going to carry a gun, you've got to be responsible in your thinking about how to properly use it. We're going to look at one of the very best defensive handguns that I'm aware of. This is a Ruger Security 6, and this was essentially the first double-action revolver that Ruger made. And they started these, quite a few years ago, back in the 70s, I believe. And most of us were familiar with the single-action Rugers, and of course Ruger built their reputation on the single-action revolver, such as the Black Hawk series, also on the .22, the standard .22, which, if memory serves me correct, was the first Ruger handgun that most of us ever saw or were familiar with. Might have been the first Ruger handgun. So anyway, Ruger built a very solid reputation for durability with these guns. They were accurate. In fact, this is one of those things. This gun turned out to be so good, the Security 6, and trust me on this one, if you've got a Security 6 and you think you need to upgrade to a GP100 or 686 Smith & Wesson or something else because it's a later edition, forget it. You have one of the finest revolvers that's ever been made by anybody. And this is one of those deals, and of course, Ruger did not check with me. But they don't check with us for anything, believe me. But and they probably ought to. If they had good sense, they probably ought to. That's just my opinion. Okay, anyway, Ruger had one of the best designs that's ever happened, and they went and fixed it. You know, the GP100 was supposed to be a technological advance. Well, okay, I like the GP100. They're nice guns, but everybody that I know and have talked to that has shot the Security 6, we can't really see the improvement. One advantage, I guess, the GPs might have, they have a heavier barrel, which would help maybe in reducing recoil. But I tell you what, friends, your basic old Security 6, as they were called, really was about as good as it gets for revolvers. I mean, you couldn't wear them out. They shot extremely accurately, and really this is a gun that Ruger sort of built their reputation for double-action revolvers with, because they were competing with the Smith & Wesson Model 19, the Colt Python, and of course the good news was the Ruger guns were a little cheaper. And so a lot of people said, well, I can afford the Ruger and easier than I can the Smith & Wesson or the Colt, so we're just going to give it a try. And of course they were very pleasantly surprised, because really these are terrific guns. It's very easy to get a smooth action, and Ruger had such great luck in using stainless steel. This gun was one of the first ones in stainless that was real common. And I think that you remember when the Smith & Wesson guns, if you've been in shooting for a long time, the stainless Smiths were just almost impossible to find, almost impossible to get. Well, along comes Ruger, and you can actually buy these things in stainless steel. So That was a huge advancement, I think, for the industry, making stainless steel guns readily available to the buying public. Well, now these guns came with a small grip. This is the stock grip, and it's a little bit beat up, and I do want to thank the good folks at Britain's for loaning us this gun for testing. They came with small grips, and of course a lot of manufacturers still make grips that will fit the Security 6. They've been out of production for several years now, but the accessories are still out there for them because they're going to be around. Honestly, friends, I tell you what, this stainless Ruger Security 6, if halfway cared for, just halfway cared for, heck, the gun will be around 200 years from now because there's nothing to really go away on it. And who knows, you could shoot it every year probably for just about that long if you could live that long. These guns have a tremendous reputation for being able to take plenty of high-powered ammunition. Of course, as in any .357, you can shoot the mild and lower-powered .38 Special. They handle them extremely well. But these were really great guns, and I don't understand why Ruger quit making them. I really don't. This is an earlier model that has the rounded recoil plate here, similar to the single actions, and a lot of us rather like that. You know, on the later models, they sort of dished it out there, I guess, to appear more modern. But if it sounds like I'm sorry that Ruger quit making these, I am, because this is one of those deals that was so good and so nice. They were considerably more durable, say, than a Model 19 Smith & Wesson, but just a little bit bigger than a Model 19. And for my knowledge, I mean, they would take a pounding about as well as any .357 Magnum. Another thing on the Rugers, the velocities, for some reason, I don't know why, seem to be a little better. And this gun is so nice and balances so well. It has the slim standard 6-inch barrel. It's extremely accurate from what we've seen so far. Just a heck of a nice package. In fact, if anybody with Ruger is out there paying attention, and they probably not, but if they were, would you please consider making these things again, because it's a slimmer package than the GP100. The actions were terrifically simple and easy to work on, easy to work with. I never heard of one being worn out. I mean, maybe somebody had one that was worn out. I just never heard of it. But these were really great guns. And, you know, as you've heard me say many times, a lot of police departments now, a lot of people think, well, they've got to have a semi-automatic to be current, to be in vogue, in fashion as far as shooting. Well, that's just not true. The double-action revolver is very possibly the best all-around defensive handgun that anybody's ever come up with. So certainly these are very, very nice guns. Well, let's take a look. We have some full charge ammunition. Let's take a look. The only thing about these small grips, you do tend to get an exaggerated recoil sensation, and first thing I would do would be put Packmeyer grips on it or something like that, or Uncle Mike's or whoever. But let's take a look at it in full recoil this afternoon. And these, we've chronographed these loads earlier. These are full charge .357 Magnums that run about 1,450 to 1,500 feet per second with a 125 grain bullet. So let's take a quick look at it here. Get my earplugs in. Yes, they are loud. So never shoot one of these things without hearing protection. If you were in a self-defense situation, you wouldn't hear the bang anyway. It wouldn't be very loud to you anyway if your life's threatened. But if you're just out shooting, that's one drawback a .357 or any of the Magnum handguns have, is they are loud. So with that thought in mind, let's see just how loud, in fact. Yes. And we have some .296 powder there, a little muzzle flash. Don't know if you saw that or not, but recoil's not bad. Let's take another quick shot. So actually, it comes back in your hand. It's not so bad. It's you definitely know it went off, but I mean, I wouldn't want to come out here all afternoon and shoot full power .357s for my hand's sake without some different grips, but it's not that bad. And certainly, if you like the standard grip, you can shoot this gun with the lower powered .38 Specials, get used to it, but you also need to shoot enough full powered ammunition to know how the gun's going to act and know where it's going to hit. Friends, you can see a lot of us are familiar with the Ruger working parts. This is what I was talking about, the rounded recoil shield like on a single action, which I thought was a neat idea. One of the things that Ruger came with from the very beginning was the thicker top strap, thicker than on comparable guns from the other large manufacturers. And these guns did have great strength. They worked a lot like a Smith & Wesson as far as the ejector and the way the bearing here was. You have a front lock and of course your rear lock here. Another advantage, the bolt cuts here in the cylinder, you'll notice, are not directly over the hole. It's offset somewhat, giving overall, I suppose, some greater strength. The cylinder walls between, or the metal between the holes in the cylinder, were somewhat thicker than what we were accustomed to, say, on a Model 19. A very well thought out, very rugged and durable package. These guns actually, and we know it's unloaded, had a very smooth action. For what they were, they would be smoothed up with use, and of course a reasonable gunsmith could easily smooth one up to where it was just as slick as could be. Like I say, heck of a nice package. These really were neat guns. This is the later generation. This is the SP101, which is out of the GP100 series, and see here the ejector rod does not even turn when the cylinders turn, such as on our Security 6. You can tell that the ejector rod also turns on this gun, and actually I don't know what the advantage is. They just made the ejector rod there just for one purpose. It doesn't lock in the front. It locks here on the crane on the new series, and let's see if I can, you can see the little locking piece there. And on these guns, of course, it locked on the end of the ejector rod like a Smith & Wesson, and here, of course, on the rear, as is similar here. But I don't know, just 6 of one, half dozen the other. It's a nice concept. Both of them work. Like I said, I really don't think that they improved the guns when they went to the GP series, simply because what they had was so good already. Now, friends, we've opened our cylinder here on our Security 6. Let's go ahead and put us one carbine bullet in here, and the cylinder rotates counterclockwise, similar to a Smith & Wesson. And let's go ahead and let's shoot our gun here. I'm going to thumb cock it, and this one has a pretty good. We've got our water bottle out here. Let's just see what it looks like. Easily done.
You know, Carrie, I think it's as important for you ladies to know how to use these firearms as it is for us men. But you know, there's something else. We can have firearms for defense of our homes and certainly for sport, but we also need information.
Yes, I agree. I think the New American Magazine is the best source of information available in this country.
Well, I would certainly agree. The New American Magazine is the truth and nothing but the truth. And friends, if you would like to know what is really going on in this country and around the world, if you want, in fact, the truth, well, you need to get the New American Magazine. So here's how to do it.
You can get the New American by calling 1-800-727-TRUE-TRUE. And those numbers, of course, are 1-800-727-8783. The New American, $22 for a 6-month subscription. It comes twice a month.
Now, friends, with your new Shootin' Show subscription, they will also send you a free copy of what the United Nations is bringing to all of us. So this is very important. Subscribe today. You know, friends, in times like these, which indeed are strange times, we certainly need our firearms, but we also need the information about what's really going on. Order today.
The Shootin' Show will be right back after this break for your local cable company or TV station.
If you are a boater or a birder, if you ever carry a camera, Bi-Tote is for you. It is the most comfortable binocular and camera carrier on the market today. And its all-elastic quick change feature makes it possible to switch from one piece of equipment to another without missing a beat. If you think that carrying binoculars or cameras is a pain in the neck, try Bi-Tote. For the first time, your equipment will feel almost weightless, and you'll be free of that annoying swinging and bouncing which is hard on your body as well as the equipment, especially when you're negotiating rough terrain or on a pitching boat. One hand for you, one hand for the boat, and Bi-Tote for your binoculars or camera. They'll be ready for you instantly, held firmly in position. They're always there, not buried in a locker or other out-of-the-way place. And the Bi-Tote is totally adjustable for a custom fit. All necessary adapters and complete instructions are included with your Bi-Tote. How did you ever get along without it?
All right, friends, I tell you what, it has really been, we've had a reprieve here at the very end of December when we're shooting this, and of course you'll see it next week. So I say reprieve. Even here in Louisiana it does get cold, but this has been an absolutely perfect afternoon to be outdoors shooting. I'll be glad when the days get a little longer because we run out of daylight so quickly. Anyway, let's run a quick test. We have our pro timer here from the good folks at Competition Electronics, and let's run a quick test. We have our Security 6, and let's compare, because I think most of us are going to compare any revolver, defensive revolver, to the greatest defensive semi-automatic, which of course is the basic 1911. And this is our gun sight gun, which I'm happy to report is doing extremely well. They have loaned it to us for a longer term test. We really do appreciate that. But let's compare the full charge 357 on 3 targets. And I think a lot of us now, certainly, let's talk police officers, are concerned about multiple opponents. Well, with a full charge 357 Magnum, pretty much one shot apiece is going to be enough to change their minds about a whole lot of things. So we're going to put 3 shots, 3 aim shots on our 2 paper targets here. And also our last shot will be on the water jug. So remember, accuracy is absolutely essential. You can have 50 rounds in the gun. If you don't hit what you're shooting at, you've done nothing but make noise and maybe endanger a whole neighborhood full of people. So let's do that now. Let's compare our full charge 357 again to the Security 6, which yours truly thinks is one of the best defensive handguns ever. And let's just compare the 2 of them, see how it goes. All right, we're going to be fairly close to our target, certainly far enough. We're approximately 10 to 12 feet away from our paper. 1 hit in each circle, and then we're going to shoot the water bottle. So let's see how long it takes. And this would be, well, it's a comparison anyway of speed of the full charge medium frame 357 versus the standard 45 ACP. So let's do that. We'll go ahead and turn our timer on. We'll go ahead and turn the timer on. It will start me with an audible sound. And no, we're not going to draw the gun. We're going to start in the low ready position and see what it looks like. Turn the timer on. Yes, and I wounded the water bottle. It's leaking. I wounded it close enough. 1.77 seconds. And yes, we have a hit here in the circle here, circle here. That's not too bad a time, actually. Well, let's try the same drill. How about let's get a different water bottle? All right, friends, we're going to go with the 1.77 seconds, 3 hits on 3 targets, and yeah, we're going to count that wounded water bottle there as the same thing. Remember, you got to hit them. If you don't hit them, you haven't done anything. Okay, same drill with our 1911. Let's just compare the 2, see how it works. That's going to stay there. Yes, that's going to stay there. All right, here we go. Punch our timer, low ready position. Better hit on the water bottle. And we have good solid hits here, one here and here. 1.73 seconds and with our custom 1911. So honestly, that's not enough difference. 4/100ths of a second is not enough difference to worry about. Well, I'll tell you what, friends, I've really enjoyed. In fact, if I could afford it, I'd buy a lot of the guns that come through our program. I just can't afford to, but this would be one that I would certainly take a hard look at because I think the Security 6 is such a nice package. With carbine ammunition and Security 6, believe me, your home is about as well armed as you can stand, believe me. And also, these guns with the 6-inch barrels like this are pretty nice deer guns. I think the 357 Magnum is an adequate deer cartridge out to say 50 or so yards, and this gun is accurate enough to do it. So, anyway, the Security 6 357 Magnum, you know what? I wouldn't sleep tonight if I hadn't fixed that water bottle properly.
You know, friends, all of us as shooting enthusiasts should be subscribing to Shotgun News, the trading post for anything that shoots. 3 big issues monthly with literally thousands and thousands of firearms bargains. give them a call. 1-800-345-6923, a very inexpensive subscription price. Again, 1-800-345-6923. Subscribe today.
Well, friends, we hope you're enjoying our program. We also hope that 1996 has started off well for you. We do appreciate every one of you watching the program. Well, Sarah, how was your trip to Idaho?
Well, it was cold.
Well,
It was cold. We had a nice trip up there. My daughter's up there, and our son came up and joined us, and we had a very nice visit.
well, I understand you went snowmobiling. Is that correct?
I did go snowmobiling.
Well, that was fun, huh?
Yeah, but I didn't want to go quite as fast as they wanted to go.
Well, I can appreciate that. I want to mention that we've had the nicest thing said about Pat Buchanan on the previous program. And I understand you did contact Helen Chenoweth's office. Is that right?
I did. She was in Washington. And I did contact her office, talked to her press secretary. They're sending us some tapes. Told them we were particularly interested in her attitude about guns and firearms, and if they'd send us some tapes, we'd probably play them on the program.
Great.
In fact, I told her press secretary, who was incidentally up in northern Idaho. Well, incidentally, that's a long ways away.
That's right. Idaho's a long state, isn't it?
And I told him that I told her that I really did like Helen Chenoweth. If I wasn't already married, I could fall in love with her.
Well, she is a very attractive person. Seems to be a very bright and nice person.
Well, she certainly has a good voting record. She has has worked herself up to being the #1 target on the Democrats' hit list.
Oh, she's good. She's got to be great. I mean, she has to be. Well, speaking of Democrats and speaking of hit list, what information? I know you have some things here you want to talk about.
Well, among other things, I got my concealed weapons permit in Idaho.
Great.
That gives me 2 states now, and I understand that we're going to have introduced in the legislature in Louisiana this time, or at the first opportunity, I'll put it that way, the first reciprocal recognition of concealed weapons permits.
Now, that means if you have a concealed weapon permit in another state somewhere else, that Louisiana would also recognize that. Is
Provided
that
that
right?
other state recognized Louisiana.
Okay, so it goes both ways. I see.
It's got to be a two-way street.
Well, that'll be great for us here. I mean, surely Texas. I think Bush and Texas would be willing to work with us. I would think so. So,
Well, we've got somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 or 30 some odd states now that have concealed weapons permits. A good many of them are available even if you're not a resident of that state, like Idaho was.
well, that's great.
On the other hand, Idaho's got a provision that makes a concealed weapons permit particularly desirable because if you're carrying a gun in your car, unless you're carrying it out on an open seat, it's considered to be carrying a concealed weapon. That's not true in Louisiana, but it means if you have a handgun in your car and you have it under the seat, you're carrying a concealed weapon. I don't know to what extent they try to do anything about that, but it's there anyhow. Got an interesting issue of the New American this week. The fact is, it just came in a day or so ago. And any of you that are interested in this business of a new world order and Bosnia and so forth, this issue just really exposes it all. I can't cover a 50-page magazine in the time that we have here. I can't even give a decent synopsis of it. But I'll tell you this, you really ought to pay attention to what they say.
Well, here we are. We've already had our first casualty from a mine, I believe, over in Bosnia. How many Americans does he intend to put over there? 20,000? How do you know?
He started off saying 20,000, and then they got to 25,000. That's the last I heard, 25,000. So I don't know how many it's going to be. It may end up being a good bit more than that.
Well, of course, so many of us are suspect on Clinton's motive, of course. He talked about having them out in a year if he could bring them out just about election time. Boy, wouldn't that make him look nice if this thing doesn't backfire. Now, realize those people have only been fighting among themselves now for, 500 years that we know about?
Well, it's been a long time, Johnny, and that's one of the things that bothers me about it, because I'm not at all sure that it's possible to have peace in that part of the world. Those people have been fighting each other for decades, centuries really, and they haven't had the ability to get along with each other. And the minute we get over there, the minute we're over there and we start doing something, I'll guarantee you one side or the other is going to say we're on the other side's side, and there's going to be the possibility of more deaths and more bloodshed. What I can't figure out is this. The Germans exterminated, according to some reports, 5 million Jews. The Russians exterminated 40 or 50 million people,
It's fantastic.
many of their own. They played havoc in Poland, executed the whole officer corps. The Chinese went further than that. We haven't done anything about any of those. Now, why all of a sudden are we interested in making the Bosnian, in bringing peace or bringing a stop to bloodshed in Bosnia? It appears to me it's because we're big compared to them, but we were not big compared to China or Russia.
Well, look at Cambodia back in the 70s. The Pol Pot regime, they killed hundreds of thousands of people, but you didn't hear much about that.
No, you didn't hear anything.
Again,
about
that was near China, afraid to get involved. But, you know, it looks like a lot of bigger countries just pushing around a smaller region. What is that sort of what you're saying?
Yeah, I guess so, Johnny. Anyhow, we're getting down to beginnings of a political campaign. We had Pat Buchanan on last week.
And I just thought he was excellent.
Well, certainly as far as the issue of firearms is concerned, as far as the issue of the New World Order is concerned, as far as the issue of American intervention in civil wars in other countries is concerned, he's got to be the top man on the list. I never was a supporter of GATT, or that's a General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, and the other one was NAFTA. It seems to me that you're taking away from the sovereignty of the country, and they're doing it under executive orders that I have some question about the legality of. I'm just I'm very upset about it.
Well,
It may last out my time, as King Louis said, but it probably won't last out my children's time, and I'm concerned about that.
Catherine, honestly, this 41 Magnum is not much of a purse revolver. It's just a little bit big for that, but for anything else, it'll do just fine.
You know something? It sounds like you have a little bit of a cold.
Well, now you've got a point there. Yes, in fact, I am getting over a cold due to a terrible schedule and being extremely tired, and a little bit run down. But let me tell you what, folks, you can get over. Yes, our health club will not prevent you getting a cold or a flu or something, but what it will do, these health club products will help you overcome it easier. And that's the good news, because I've gotten better. I haven't had any day that I could not work. It's been, this time of year, our weather changes here in Louisiana. If you don't like the weather, we'll just wait 30 minutes and you'll get something else anyway. But seriously, our health club products have really helped me to bounce back, snap back. I've just got a little sinus left. That's all I've got left there, a little sinus drip or whatever you want to call it. But our health club products are absolutely fantastic for what they will do for you. And certainly they will help you, help keep your body in condition to avoid some of these things that come along. But friends, if you want to help yourselves and help our program too, give us a call on our Health Club line, 1-800-895-7916. We do have people in place that are taking those calls, and they'll get back to you as soon as possible. Like I said, it certainly helps our show, but more than that, it'll help you. So do it today. For Health Club information, give us a call, 1-800-895-7916. Leave your name, address, and phone number. Someone will get back to you as soon as possible. Friends, this is such a wonderful thing. Do it for yourselves today.
The Shootin' Show will be right back after this break for your local cable company or TV station.
You know, friends, it's rare in any field of manufacture that one particular company has a clear-cut advantage over the others. Well, in this case, it's Corbin Ammunition, Corbin Bullet Company, because they make the best handgun, long gun, and even some specialty caliber ammunition that's been real hard to get in the past. If you really want your handgun or rifle to perform at their absolute best, you need to find some Corbin ammunition. For information on where you can get Corbin, information on their product line, call them. Corbin Bullet Company, 1-800-626-7266. Again, give them a call. It's a free call, 1-800-626-7266. Trust me on this one. Corbin is the best there is. You know, Judge, I think all of us are concerned about the direction that President Clinton is taking, because we really don't know. The man is really not necessarily responsible to the American people. He's responsible to his New World Order outfit, and that just bothers me terribly, because, you know, what does the man stand for? I mean, who do we really have representing us in this office?
Well, Johnny, I'm concerned about the watering down of the Constitution. The President is Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Services. That's true. But it is in black and white in the Constitution that only Congress has the power to declare war. And the President, however, can get us into such a situation where we don't have any other choice.
Mm-hmm.
But this particular issue of the New American talks about the Whitewater hearings, saying they're heating up, and that pointing out that even the Clinton supporters are beginning to hedge their bets in their editorials. And the charge of isolationism, the effects on the budget, the alien tide in America. This issue I found to have been so particularly full of information. The gun report, for example. New American every month has a page. They call it the gun report.
And we really do appreciate them working with us. Certainly, we've had an influence on, certainly through our viewing audience, on their emphasizing some of the gun rights, because they, you know, the New American staff realizes the importance of these firearms in our lives and the freedom of our country. So, anyway, go ahead.
Well, they talk about the Canadian situation, and we've had some correspondence from Canada. The Carnegie Foundation is given a grant to assist in the registration of firearms. Incidentally, Steve Stockman, who's another one of our very favorite people, he's a representative from down in South Texas, Southeast Texas, I think it is. His bill, H.R. 2393, would hold any official personally liable for registering gun owners' names.
Well, good. So that could be.
It happened in Canada. The Canadians didn't know what was happening, and they ended up with a confiscatory policy toward guns.
And let me add, we really do appreciate our Canadian viewers, and yes, we do appreciate hearing from you. Constantly, our correspondence from the Canadians says, don't let this happen to you as Americans. That's what we see in almost every letter, and we really do. And I think they're going to fight for their rights up there, or what they perceive as what their rights are as a free people. I don't know how much luck they're going to have.
Well, it's kind of tough when you start fighting a government or your government, but government exists to serve the people. It is not the master of the people. Incidentally, we're going to be at the SHOT Show.
Yes, we are.
And I want to give another boost to the little magazine, a little weekly newspaper called the Gun Week. It keeps you up to date on what's happening, the faxes we get from Gun Owners of America and the NRA. All of these people are doing a splendid job. We need to be helping them and supporting them. And I understand that Newt Gingrich is going to be up in Idaho with speaking at a fundraiser for Helen Chenoweth.
Really?
$1,000 a plate.
Oh,
And
that's just a little steeper than than I can afford.
it's a little steeper than I can afford, but I tell you, any of you that have some spare money lying around and you want to try to put it to good use, I'd say Steve Stockman, Helen Chenoweth, Crapo, I think, is the other representative in Idaho. Gun Owners of America, though, knows, the organization Gun Owners of America knows who their supporters are. They have a better feel for their supporters than any other group I've seen. And unless they get some sort of change in the laws that eliminate PACs, political action committees, and I think that is coming, the gun owners can speak well through one of our organizations or through all of our organizations, including Gun Owners of America, including the NRA, including the Second Amendment Foundation. Second Amendment Foundation is one that publishes Gun Week. And we must not let this issue die down. It needs to be done. And I can't tell you all the things that are in this New American, this issue of New American. It is just fantastic about Haiti, about immigration. There's so much here, and I didn't have much time after I got back from Idaho to organize anything for tonight. So I'm going to have to save some of that for a subsequent program.
Well, like we keep saying, stay tuned, folks. The battle is on, and we're in the thick of it, trying to preserve your and our rights. So remember, if you do go to the SHOT Show in Dallas, if you happen to see us walking around, well, don't mind coming up and saying hello. Certainly, we'd be very pleased to meet you. My esteemed colleague is going to be you going to be riding or walking around?
Well,
You'll have you one
I don't
of those
think I can
motorized-
I don't think I can get a horse in that place.
Well, they have those little motorized scooters. For those of you who don't know what the SHOT Show is, it's a giant shooting, hunting, outdoor trade show. There will be about 1,500 exhibitors. Around 50,000 people will be there. It is a gigantic show of everything that's pretty much is going on in the firearms industry and in the outdoor and hunting field. So we will have new product updates and things.
Well, they have everything. They don't just have guns. They've got ammunition. They've got
camping stuff,
camping
camouflage.
equipment. They've got clothing. They've got boots and shoes and
all kinds of
all
stuff.
just all the
That's
peripheral
true.
things to hunting and shooting.
Of course, it is not available it is not a public event. You have to have some interest as in a dealer or something like this to get in.
Or like we do, the press.
Or like we do the press, that's right. And doggone, we will be pressing them, huh, Judge?
I think on that punishment we'll leave.
Get your hands off that gun, bow, or fishing rod. Holding onto your equipment while you're going through the woods or climbing a hill is fatiguing and possibly dangerous. The versatile Tri-Tote all-season carrier is easy to use. You never have to drill a hole in your fine gun stock. And the Tri-Tote can be set up for your specific needs in a jiffy. Just follow the illustrated instructions and free demo video enclosed. There you are, hands-free, yet ready to shoot in an instant. Hunting and fishing have never been more enjoyable. With Tri-Tote, your equipment is secure and your hands are free to support yourself or carry other gear. How did you ever get along without Tri-Tote? Make this year's hunting and fishing the best ever. To order your Tri-Tote at this special TV price, call toll-free 1-800-231-1443. That's 1-800-231-1443.
The Shootin' Show will be right back after this break for your local cable company or TV station.
And now, friends, we're very pleased to present Art Alpin of the great A Square Company. For those of you who don't know, Art is a former instructor at West Point, and he has some of these wonderful things to say, some of the most interesting things that I've ever seen on firearms. And so let's see what he has to tell us today.
Listening to Men of Harlech while looking at the mission station at Rorke's Drift, Natal. It should remind you of the Zulu War of 1879 and more generally should bring to mind images of empire. For the weapons expert, these things bring to mind visions of the infantry rifle of the 1860s through the 1880s, a black powder, single-shot breech loader. Ideas for breech loaders existed long before the 1860s. This Ferguson breech loader of the 1770s was a flintlock, much as you've seen before. Its breech mechanism was that threaded column which you see attached to the trigger guard. After unscrewing the column, it was loaded with loose powder and ball, and the column was screwed back in. Though it held promise, it was beyond the capability of industry at the time. Further, its inventor, Major Ferguson, never got much opportunity to work on the design, for he was killed by the Patriots at the Battle of Kings Mountain. By 1859, the Sharps breech loader had appeared, using the ordinary paper cartridge. Though a sturdy and robust design, the Sharps did not seal gas well. Used in the war between the states, it was not 100% satisfactory. All breech loading designs had drawbacks, and none supplanted the muzzle loader. Put simply, the breech loader could not practically exist without the brass cartridge case. It is the cartridge case which holds all the elements: powder, bullet, and primer in one neat package. Further, the cartridge case serves double duty
by expanding against the chamber during discharge and sealing the gases in the barrel. This point is critical. The weapon holds the cartridge case, and the case provides the seal. Brass cartridge cases had been experimented with immediately prior to the war between the states. During the war, a number of different breech loading and repeating designs were tried, each with a different cartridge case. Though many, like the Spencer, were used to some degree, the cartridge cases all suffered defects which limited the usefulness of the weapons involved. The cartridge cases were crude and non-uniform because the machinery of the day simply was not up to their manufacture. Further, they were normally rimfire, much as you see here. The rimfire is aptly named, for the priming compound is distributed around the perimeter of the fold of the rim. In order to discharge the weapon, the firing pin had to crush the rim of the cartridge case. But if the cartridge case was made strong enough to withstand a large powder charge, then the firing pin couldn't crush the rim. Breech loaders had to wait on a decent metallic cartridge case with center fire priming. In the 1860s and 70s, a number of patents were awarded for center fire priming. Many of these, such as the Benet, Rodman, Milbank, Farrington, and others, were either used for a short period of time or did nothing more than contribute to other designs which would follow. Out of this flurry of activity, two designs emerged triumphant and carry forward to this day. They are the Boxer and the Berdan. Both of these primers were initially predicated upon the use of the designer's cartridge case. Boxer concentrated on the coiled brass cartridge case, as you see here. It was nothing more than brass foil wrapped around a mandrel and then soldered to a base washer with the primer inserted in the middle of the base washer. Berdan worked on the one-piece cartridge case made by the impact extrusion method. Further detail would serve no purpose. Suffice it to say that improvements in both center fire primers and cartridge cases occurred rapidly from the period 1866 to 1878, when designs seemed to stabilize. You can see the Berdan center fire primer on the left and the Boxer on the right. Note the walls and base of the cartridge case are thick and strong to withstand heavy powder charges. The firing pin crushes the relatively soft primer cup against the anvil, and the flame thus produced from the priming compound travels through the flash hole and into the main powder charge. The firing pin supports the soft primer cup until the bullet exits the barrel and the pressure drops. The point is to remember that viable center fire cartridge systems were possible from 1866 onward. Throughout the 1860s and 70s, many different designs for breech loading cartridge firearms surfaced. The Sharps was quickly converted to center fire cartridge cases in 1866, and it is this which gave the Sharps its great popularity. Throughout the 1870s and 80s, it was the Sharps, chambered for the large black powder cartridge cases, which was commonly used to harvest the buffalo for the meat and hide markets of the East. Many nations tried converting their muzzle-loading muskets to center-fire cartridge breech loaders. The Allen system, used in the United States, will be covered in another tape. The Snyder system surfaced in England in 1862, and by 1866 had been perfected and adopted. In this conversion, the breech end of the rifled musket barrel was cut off and a trough-like receiver substituted. The breech block was nothing more than a cylinder of steel that rotated about an axis parallel to the axis of the bore. The cartridge was dropped into the trough, pressed forward into the chamber, and the breech block pivoted into place. After firing, The breech block was pivoted out of position and pressed backwards, thereby extracting the cartridge case. Ejection was accomplished by picking the case out with the fingers or turning the weapon upside down. The Snyder was chambered for a .58 caliber centerfire cartridge, which basically duplicated the ballistics of the .58 caliber rifled musket. From 1869 to 1871, the British conducted testing for the adoption of a new breech-loading rifle. Many competing designs were on the market. The Mauser turnbolt design was being perfected using the basic idea from the old needle gun. This was adopted in 1871 by the Germans. Remington had come up with their rolling block, a system which achieved some popularity in the United States and was adopted by a few nations abroad. What the British finally did adopt in 1871 was a modification of the American Peabody action. The improvements came from two men named Martini and Henry, thereby giving rise to the rifle's new name, the Martini Henry. In this weapon, a falling breech block is mounted on a rear pivot pin in the receiver. Upon moving the operating lever downwards, the nose of the breech block drops, thereby exposing the chamber and extracting and ejecting any cartridge case that might be there. The shooter pressed the next cartridge into the chamber and closed the lever, thereby raising the breech block. We'll use two of these weapons in the range scene that you are about to see. The Snyder represents the lowest volume of fire and shortest combat range of the major breech-loading systems, while the Martini Henry represents roughly the highest volume of fire and close to the maximum combat range. The Snyder and the Martini Henry represented improvement over the .58 caliber rifled musket. The Snyder has the same range. The Martini Henry, with its higher velocity and better ballistic coefficient, has a greater battle sight and a just sight range. In both cases, the volume of fire is higher. The potential improvement is even greater. Both the Snyder and the Martini Henry must be manipulated by the soldier. The more dexterous and highly trained soldiers could easily increase the volume of fire of either weapon. Further, as range decreased and the need for attaining a precise sight picture consequently decreased, a soldier could spend less time in aiming and more time in loading, further increasing his volume of fire. Secondly, the combat range limitation on the .58 caliber rifled musket is due not only to its trajectory, but is also due to a fall-off in accuracy, as you saw in one of the previous tapes. At 350 yards, the rifled musket simply is not striking a human being-sized target on every shot. Some of this same problem also existed with the Snyder. But by the 1870s, things had changed. Accuracy was undergoing a phenomenal improvement. Manufacturing tooling was being improved, and the weapons and ammunition were made with a precision unknown in the days of the rifled musket. All breech-loading weapons have a throat cut in the barrel between the chamber and the rifling. This is an area in which the bullet is eased out of the cartridge case and into the rifling. Because the bullet is precisely made to the groove diameter of the barrel, it travels through the throat and is engraved by the rifling with a shot-to-shot uniformity that the rifled musket cannot hope to match. This means that the breech-loading rifle is far more accurate than any rifled musket. In fact, shot groups of 1 or 2 inches in diameter at 100 yards were not uncommon. Given our concept of the cone of fire, this would mean that these weapons could place every shot in a 10 to 12 inch diameter circle at 500 or 600 yards. This will fit on the chest of a human being, assuming that the sights are properly adjusted for the range. Combat range was now limited only by the trajectory of the weapon and range estimation error. Though the volume of fire was increasing, it was still not adequate to stop the frenzied mass charges of the dervishes or the Zulu unless the soldiers were in some sort of tight formation. Consequently, the line, the British square, and other such formations stayed in the drill books throughout the 1860s, 70s, and 80s. Further, especially when the empire engaged some of the less industrialized peoples, the bayonet was still of some use. By the late 1880s, many developments in the way of repeating rifles, smokeless powder, and jacketed bullets were rendering these weapons obsolescent. Most would be replaced as frontline weapons by the 1890s. However, one should not assume that the weapons became instant junk. The Martini Henry was used by the Indian Army throughout World War I. In many areas of the world, these weapons are still held in inventory. As late as 1979, I saw Snider rifles being carried by Egyptian soldiers guarding a bridge across the Nile. In 1978, I saw Martini Henry rifles being used in battle by guard force units in what was then Rhodesia. The period 1866 to 1890 speaks of empire and of fascinating weapons. Though its volume of fire was modest, the single-shot black powder breech loader was highly effective. When properly employed, such as at Rorke's Drift, victory would normally result. When errors were made, such as those at Izan Shlowana, or when calculated risk went awry, such as with Alan Wilson's Shangani Patrol, then nothing could really stem the tide.